Okay, again, I'd like to welcome everyone this morning to our presentation on recycling. And my name is Daryl Royce. I'm with AARP Alaska. Happy to have all of you with us today. I do have a couple of guests with us who are going to be leading our presentation today. Susanna Caldwell and Laurel Bowers. I hope I got those names, Laura Bowers, I hope I got those names correct. And we do have a nice small group with us today. I think there's going to be some interactive options for everyone today to participate. So just want to make sure that everyone is aware that you have a reactions button. At some point on your screen, you'll find the reactions button, which allows you to participate using a symbol like a thumbs up or a hand clap, things like that. And feel free and please do participate when you have the option to use those reactions. It's always nice for the presenters to know how they're doing. So with that, Laurel or Susanna, who's going to lead off this morning?
I'm going to start us off. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for having us here today. Super excited to talk about trash and recycling with everyone. Give me just a second here. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can everyone see that okay? Great. Okay, excellent. So yeah, I'm Susanna Caldwell. I'm the recycling coordinator at Solid Waste Services. And I'm here today with Laurel Andrews. She is my counterpart or my equivalent over at Alaska Waste. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about trash and recycling. But before we dive into that, I just want to give you guys an overview of kind of the different roles that Laurel and I have when it comes to recycling here in Anchorage, because the muni and private entities, we work together, but we do play kind of different roles when it comes to handling trash and recycling here in Anchorage. So to give you an overview about what Solid Waste Services does, so we are a department within the municipality of Anchorage, and within our department, we actually have two utilities. So we have a collections utility that operates within the old city boundaries of Anchorage, and we have about 14,000 customers that are commercial and residential. That if you live in our area, you have to have service with us. And this was actually set up in the 50s by the City Council of Anchorage at the time. They were concerned that the city was growing too fast and that it was going to get messy, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of our trash. So they passed a law saying that you have to have mandatory trash service, which created our service area. When the city merged with the borough of Anchorage in the 70s to create the municipality, that law stayed on the books. And so we still operate in that area. Everything outside of those boundaries, which the boundaries are basically everything north of Northern Lights Boulevard with some cutouts when you get over to East Anchorage. Everybody outside of that area can operate with either a private hauler or they can self-haul. And so Laurel is with a private hauler, Alaska Waste. And so she'll talk a little bit more about how they offer services in that area. So we have our collections utility, but then we also have our disposal utility, which operates the Anchorage Regional Landfill as well as two transfer sites. And so what that means is we have our collection arm, which only operates in one area, but our disposal arm accepts all of the trash that is generated within the municipality of Anchorage. So regardless of who your trash provider is, all of that trash is going to end up at Solid Waste Services and ultimately at the Anchorage Regional Landfill. And so my role here at Solid Waste Services is to try to keep trash out, right? So and so a lot of work I do is around that. So I'm going to pass it off to Laurel now, though, to talk a little bit about what Alaska Waste does.
Yeah, so my name is Laurel Andrews, as Susanna said, and I'm the community outreach coordinator for Alaska Waste. And a large part of what I do is try to encourage recycling, share tips and tricks about recycling. And so I'm really excited to be here today sharing all this information with you all. So thank you so much for being here. As Susanna said, you can go ahead and press the buttons, Susanna. You can just do all three. It's fine. As she said, it's a non-compete between Solid Waste Services and the private haulers because Solid Waste Services has their own area. So, we're functioning in a pretty good partnership, and so Alaska Waste, we provide residential and commercial trash and recycling in Anchorage and in different communities across Alaska. Anchorage, we have a very robust recycling options for both our commercial and our residential customers, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the options a little bit later on. But our residential customers alone recycled more than 18 million pounds of recycling in 2020, and we are just trying to shoot for even more and more every single year. So if you have recycling with us, thank you for being a part of that really large number. Our recycling bins are the ones that have the yellow lids. So as you drive around town, you'll surely see them out. And then other services include commercial composting, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. We have a used cooking oil service for restaurants, and that actually gets recycled into biodiesel, and it gets added to asphalt in Alaska too, which is pretty neat. And we also have in-office recycling, which is exactly the same as your regular curbside, except our driver will come into your office to grab the bins. So yeah, that's a good start. You can go ahead, Susanna, with the next slide.
Thanks, Laurel. So yeah, so now we're going to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of trash and recycling here in Anchorage. So just to give you a little bit of context, so the Anchorage is the largest city in the state of Alaska. We have a population of about 300,000 people. And we end up collecting about 350,000 tons of trash each year at the Anchorage Regional Landfill. So to give you some sort of context, because I know that's a big number, and what the heck does, a ton of garbage look like, right? So if you are familiar with the former BP building in Midtown Anchorage, we end up accepting the equivalent volume of that building at the landfill every month. So that times 12, right, ends up going into our landfill every year. So it's a lot of trash. We do a lot of work, obviously, to reduce that volume and to compact it down and to, keep the landfill going for as long as possible. But it's a lot of trash that we accept. The average resident in Anchorage ends up throwing away between 5 to 6 pounds of trash per person per day, which is actually higher than the national average of 4.4 pounds per day. There's kind of some pros and cons to that, right? When communities are making more trash, that means that they have a better economy, right? They're able to purchase more things and to do more construction and things like that. But it also indicates a lack of recycling options, right? Because compared to the amount of trash that we take in every year, we take in a very, very small amount of recycling. And Laurel is going to talk a little bit later about why that is. We kind of have some challenges there when it comes to that. But we are really committed here at Solid Waste Services and Alaska Waste to trying to improve this number, right? And one of the reasons we want to do that is because of the landfill. So the landfill is the final resting place for all of the trash that we collect within the municipality of Anchorage. We only have one. It was built in 1987, so it's almost 34 years old. And so at the landfill, we're taking in about 1,000 tons of trash a day. And since it opened in 1987, we've disposed of about 10 million tons of trash in the landfill. It has a capacity, though, of about 27 million tons. And so right now, the expected closure date for the Anchorage Regional Landfill is 2069. It's about 46 years from now. So while that is a good amount of time, I like to hope that that's within my lifetime, right? And so we want to make sure that we're extending the life of the landfill for as long as possible. Because if we have to close our landfill, we don't really have any other good options for it. When the landfill was built in 1987, the other options that they considered for building a new landfill included the Sand Lake pits, which is now housing. So that's not an option anymore if we were going to try to build a new landfill within the municipality. The other two options were Campbell Tract and Kincaid Park. And of course, we all love those spaces. They're such a great thing for our community. No one wants to build a landfill there. I know I certainly don't, as an avid user of those areas. So So if we're talking about building a new landfill, what we're really talking about is having to ship our trash either to the Mat-Su Valley or out of state. And both of those come with really high costs. Just to ship to the valley alone would mean we'd have to double the cost of our trash. Because when they accept trash from that's generated from outside of the Mat-Su, they charge double. And right now their disposal rate is already double what our disposal rate is at the Anchorage Regional Landfill, just what they charge their residents. So anyway, and that doesn't even include the transportation costs and things like that. So we are working really hard to try to extend the life of the landfill as much as possible, because this is such an important resource for our community, both from an environmental perspective and an economic one. So one thing I would encourage everyone to do is, try to think about, okay, well, how can I, improve recycling? How can I, try to extend the life of the landfill? And one great tool we have is we have this landfill countdown closure clock. And so it's not ticking right now, but if you go to our website, muni.org/SWS, you can play around with these little icons. And so, for example, if we were to recycle just all of our cans and bottles here in Anchorage, right? Say we really improved the program and had really robust collection, it adds 5 years of life to the landfill. If we mandated curbside recycling, which it's not currently mandated, right? It's a opt-in service, that adds 10 years of life to the landfill. If we were to mandate, curbside recycling and organics collection, you add 20 years. So, it goes to show you that even really small actions can lead to really big gains for our community. So yeah, I definitely would encourage you to check that out. Again, muni.org/SWS. And yeah, so we've been talking about recycling, but now let's talk about the nitty gritty of it. Laurel's going to kind of explain how it works and why we have some of the challenges that we have when it comes to recycling.
Yeah, oops. Thanks, Susanna. So that picture that you see here, that's the Anchorage Recycling Center. Many of you are probably already aware of it or have been there. So no matter what hauler you have, or if you have the municipality trash recycling service or our recycling service, or commercial or residential, it's all ending up at the recycling center, the Anchorage Recycling Center. And so it's a small operation. They have one baler. It's the world's mightiest baler. It's been baling all of our recycling for decades. They're a really great operation, and they're part of WestRock, which is a larger recycling organization or company, I suppose, in the US and in North America. So we're very fortunate to have their presence in our community, because when things got tough a few years ago with recycling, we didn't have a lot of the same problems that some small communities did with getting their recycling out, because our relationship is with such a large entity. But in any case, the Anchorage Recycling Center, a lot of different partners work with them to make recycling possible in Alaska, and that's including the municipality, all the private haulers who do recycling. There's a nonprofit called ALPAR, Alaskans for Litter Prevention and Recycling, that plays a huge role in this, and shipping companies. They are the unsung heroes of the recycling system, and I'll explain why in the next slide. So recycling in Anchorage, it functions like we're on an island, and by that we mean everything gets shipped here, and if you want it to go out, you got to ship it out. We don't have the manufacturing. We don't have big plants that can, break down paper. So we have to ship all of our stuff back to the Pacific Northwest. Mainly the Tacoma area is where where our stuff ends up. And the reason why I said that shipping companies are so crucial is because they are actually Toten Matson. They come up here with our groceries, and then they leave with our recycling, and they leave that recycling as a donation, and it's free, that they are letting us backhaul back to Seattle. So those boats are already going back anyway. They're just going back with our recycling instead of empty. And so that, Toten Matson, they don't sing their own praises about this very much. So I like to. I think it's a really amazing partnership, and ALPAR is crucial in keeping that happen. So So we're really lucky that we have so many partnerships in Alaska to make it work, and especially in Anchorage. So as I mentioned, all of our recyclables are getting exported to the lower 48, with the exception of glass, which we'll talk about some separately since you don't put it in curbside. So, the downside of this, of course, is it does limit what we can accept, because the Anchorage Recycling Center has to have a very specific set of commodities that they can accept that will bring them some sort of revenue at the end of the long haul south. So that's why we see such a, maybe a reduced amount of plastics that we can recycle, things like that. But what we do recycle, we have such a great hauler, or a great entity that we're working with that, again, I feel very lucky to be working with West Rock and the Anchorage Recycling Center. I think that's all for this slide. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about what happens to your recycling when it does get to the lower 48. So I took these photos. I went and toured a material recovery facility. If you've ever heard the term MRF, that's what people are talking about. This is where all of your recyclables, maybe not the specific one, but all your recyclables that are in your commingled, they get baled up all together and then shipped south. And this is where they get separated. So when you walk into this giant warehouse, you see a big pile of materials that are just all on the floor, and then they're getting moved through, you can see that far right photo, they're getting moved through assembly lines of different kinds, and there's all these different levels. And so they slowly pick out all the levels through, both mechanical means, and then there's some hand picking as well. And then you can see the silos underneath in that picture to the right that have all the materials correctly sorted out. And that middle photo is just a bunch of bales. The driver's taken some cardboard, but you see a lot of plastics behind there as well. And I think you can switch to the next slide. Yeah, and that's what it looks like after it gets all baled up. You got your plastics. Those look like plastic number 2 jugs on your left, and then you have aluminum cans on your right. And these are the materials they're getting sold. So these all came from commingled bins, and here they are in all their beautiful finished recyclable glory. So just wanted to share how that all works. And I think now we have a short video that we're going to try to play about that shows basically what I'm saying, maybe a little bit easier to see.
Yeah, definitely. So hang on, I gotta share a new screen here. Hold on. So you can see, it looks like you can see it. Okay, yeah. So I'm actually going to turn off the volume. With the video, all it is just kind of mechanical noises. So I'm going to turn it off and just kind of walk through it a little bit. It's really short. It's only 2 minutes, but again, it's going to really show you what this all looks like, and I think it's really helpful because it kind of shows the scale of everything. And one thing to think about is that when we do put our recycling into commingled bins, in the recycling industry, we talk a lot about contamination. And contamination is anything that isn't supposed to be recycled going into a bin. And why we talk about this is because when we send this stuff down to the material recovery facilities, it has to be sorted out, and it slows everything down. And for us in Alaska, it also means that we're shipping trash down to the lower 48, where we have to pay for the disposal of that trash, and it costs us more money to do that. And so that makes it more difficult for us to grow our recycling programs, right? So that's why it really is super important that people are recycling the right thing. So I'm going to play the video and just kind of talk through some of the stuff that we're seeing here. This is just an example of a material recovery facility. It is not the one that we send all our stuff to. We send most of our materials to material recovery facilities in Portland and Tacoma. So you can see this is where it all just starts out, right? It just goes onto a conveyor belt, essentially, where it just is getting fed into the system. And from there are actual people who are on these sort lines picking out contamination, things that you see they're pulling out plastic bags and things like that that can't be sorted out easily. Then it starts going through the sort line where things like cardboard, for example, get kind of picked out with that big machinery. And then as it goes through the process, it's also, picking up the little fine particles that are really difficult to recycle. So little bits of, paper and glass and stuff like that. This material recovery facility is accepting glass. We do not accept glass in our commingled recycling. So yeah, there's all kinds of technology that goes into this stuff. So there's magnets, there's eddy currents. In some places there are lasers and robots that are actually picking out all of the different materials as they go through the sort line. So you can see more paper is getting sorted out here. Now we're seeing just kind of the bottles. They've mostly sorted out the bottles, but then you've got a magnet that's pulling out tin cans, right? And an eddy that's pulling out aluminum. So. This is residue, so this is trash essentially, right? This is sort of the smaller bits that can't be recycled. And you can't really see it, but the cans are getting sent to an area where they will eventually get baled, like what Laurel showed you. And the same with the paper, they sort it all out and then they take it and they bale it and they send it to the manufacturer for final processing. So that's it. Let's go back to our slide here. Oops, sorry. All right.
Susanna?
Okay, now we finally, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Daryl. Just wanted to
Hold on, slowly.
chime in here just for a second and let everyone know if they have questions, they can drop them in chat and we'll be sure to get to those. But I just want to give everyone the opportunity to go ahead and if they're developing questions as they watch and listen, please drop those in chat and we'll be sure and answer those at the end. All right, thanks, Susanna.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. Okay, so now we want to just quiz you all about what your basic understanding of recycling in Anchorage is. So Laurel and I have a few items that we're going to show you. And so this is the part where we want you to engage with us. So if something is recyclable, go down to the reaction button on Zoom and you'll see there's a bunch of different reactions. Do the clap. If you think the item that we're going to show you is recyclable. If it's not recyclable, it's called Tears of Joy. The little crying face, he's technically happy, but in this case, the tears are sad because we're not supposed to recycle this item. So I'm gonna hold up an item, and then and I'll go through a few of them, and we'll talk about how people did and why or why not things are recyclable, and then Laurel will go through a few too. So I'm gonna start here. I'll stop sharing the screen so you can see me. So okay, I have a number 2 laundry detergent jug. It has a handle, it has a screw cap, it has a little lid. Is it recyclable or is it not? Go ahead and do your reactions now. Okay, I'm seeing some clapping. I'm seeing a sad, okay, a little bit of both. Okay, kind of 50-50 it feels like. Okay, so this is a number 2 plastic jug. This is recyclable, both at drop-offs or at in your curbside recycling, anything like that. The rule with number 2 plastics is that it needs to have a handle and a screw cap. That's kind of the thing that you're looking for. Sometimes you'll see other things that are marked number 2 plastic. Like for example, if you go to breweries and stuff, you'll see these the beverage container holders, right? Where the 6-pack cans. Those are number 2, but those don't have a handle and they don't have a screw cap. And so what that means is that the number actually indicates the type of resin that's used in the production of the plastic. But the process of making a jug versus another type of item is different. And so when you go to recycle it, it requires different kind of handling. And so oftentimes, if it's not in this like jug form, it actually can't be recycled into something new because the plastic will degrade too much. So Plastics are really tricky. Plastics are really hard, but you know, it's worth double checking and making sure you're doing the right thing. So good job to everybody who got this right. So we got some more, hang on. All right, so the next item is a pizza box. This one actually has a little bit of grease in it. Not a lot, but like a little bit. So is a pizza box, a cardboard pizza box, is that recyclable in Anchorage? All right, I'm seeing clapping hands, mostly clapping hands. Oh, I see a cry. Okay, all right. Got a little bit of back and forth. Okay, so pizza boxes, even if there is grease or like a little bit of cheese that gets stuck to the bottom of the box, that is recyclable here in Anchorage. That's a change. It was last year where Westrock did a study. They're the folks that process our recycling. They found that even a little bit of grease in a pizza box, it's okay. It doesn't degrade the ability to recycle these cardboard boxes into new cardboard boxes. So even if there's a little grease, it's totally okay to recycle. You know, we do ask that folks make sure that their recycling is mostly clean, right? Like rinsing out your cans and jars and stuff like that. The one exception is that if there is a little bit of grease in a pizza box, that is allowed. And this can go into any drop-off location that cardboard is accepted or into your curbside bin. And so then the last item I have for you is a glass bottle. Is this recyclable in Anchorage? Cry. Okay, see crying, clapping, and clapping. All right, all right. Little bit of mixed. Okay, so glass is recyclable in Anchorage. However, there's an important caveat. Glass can only go into drop-offs. It cannot go into your curbside bin. The reason it can't go into curbside bin is because all of our commingled recycling, it just gets baled and shipped to the lower 48. Glass doesn't have any value basically on the commodities market. So nobody wants to take it and to recycle it into new products. The other thing is that when you bale the glass, it actually destroys the other recycling, right? It breaks up and it like rips up the paper and the plastic and it makes it less valuable. And so we don't want to put glass into our commingled bins, but we do want to separate it and we do want to drop it off at any one of our drop-off sites. And we're going to talk a little bit more about glass later because I know folks are really interested in glass and that it's really cool in that glass is one of the few things that we actually keep here in Alaska and recycle locally. So with that, I know Laurel has a few items that she wants to quiz you all on.
Great, thanks, Susanna. So yeah, I've got a couple things here. So the first thing I have is a clamshell. So are these recyclable in Anchorage? Oh, I see a lot of tears. Oh, lots of tears on this one. Okay, you all know this one really well. Yes, you're all correct. This is not recyclable. They just don't have any value, and Westrock stopped accepting them, and that's why they only take the 1 and 2 plastics that have the screw top lids, essentially. But good job, everybody. All right, next one up, to-go box. This one is fairly clean, but what do you think? All right. So I'm seeing pretty much all yes. So this actually is not recyclable. And the reason why is because it's waxed. It's lined with wax. So it's essentially, you know, like a milk container or a juice container. That wax doesn't jive very well with the other papers, and that's why this is unfortunately not recyclable in Anchorage. All right, and lastly, I've got a magazine. Thoughts on the magazine? Is this recyclable? All right, this is a pretty easy one. Yes, it's recyclable. No worries on magazines. Glossy pages are totally fine to recycle. The thing you have to worry about are hardback books. Those don't bale, so you can't put like a lot of books into your recycling. But magazines and any kind of like glossy paper like that is totally fine. So nice job, everyone. And now we have a little bit more information about what is recyclable. Okay, recycle tips. That's me. Okay, so some tips that we want to cover here. First one is, your recyclables should be clean and dry and free of food residue. A little bit of grease in your pizza box is fine, but if there's, pizza waste in there, that's, please throw that out. No aluminum foil that has any sort of food on it. So just in general, like no aluminum foil at all. You can check the drop-off recycling signs when you go to the recycling center or any of their places around Anchorage that have recycling. Just take a look before you throw stuff into the bin, because people often will throw the wrong thing in the wrong place. And so yeah, it just helps everybody out in the end. The do not bag recycling, this is a really important one. And the reason why is because plastic bags they really wreak havoc on the machines at the material recovery facilities. You saw that video of all the gears churning. The plastic bags actually get stuck in those gears, and then they have to be manually cut out. And you have to shut down the whole plant. It takes a long time. So plastic bags are a really big deal. Do not bag recycling, put it in loose, it'll all get baled up. And lastly, a good rule of thumb, when in doubt, leave it out. If you're not sure something can be recycled, put it in the trash. It's okay. We have resources we'll tell you a little bit later if you want to figure out if something is recyclable or not. But yeah, when in doubt, throw it out or leave it out of recycling. So those are some handy tips to keep at the back of your mind. But we'll go over now what is recyclable, right, Susanna?
We're gonna move on actually.
Well, that's a little bit. Okay,
yeah. But we'll certainly answer any questions later about what is and is not recyclable here in Anchorage. We've gone over the majority of things, although we know there are so many products out there, it can get quite confusing for folks. So yeah, the biggest thing to note, work to educate yourself on what items are recyclable, and if you don't know, then leave them out, or call us, right, or email us, or whatever is more convenient for you. Laurel and I both have resources where we'll if we don't know, we'll certainly know who to ask, right, to track it down, because products do change quite frequently. So now I do want to talk about just some of the more local recycling programs that we have. So, we've talked a lot about commodities recycling and all of those products that are getting shipped down to the lower 48 to get recycled, because we don't have the manufacturing to turn cardboard and aluminum cans into new cardboard boxes and aluminum cans and that sort of thing, right? But there are a few things that we're able to keep here locally and that we've been working to expand over the years. So one is glass recycling. If you've been around Anchorage for a long time, and you care about recycling, that this has had, glass recycling has had fits and starts over the years, right? It's been turned kind of on and off. And that was because there were challenges in trying to figure out what to do with the recycled glass, that end product. But in 2012, the municipality, along with Alaska Waste and Alpar and Central Recycling Services, came together, and we found a way to turn the recycled glass into recycled glass aggregate. And basically what we do is we take all of the glass that we collect here in Anchorage, and we turn it into sand, basically, into this fill product that we use for pipe bedding and fill projects. The municipality has been using a lot of it. The Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility uses some in projects every year. We're currently building a new transfer station. We've used over 2,000 tons of recycled glass in that project so far. And of course, any construction company is able to come and use this for any sort of fill project that they have. So we started in 2012, and we've been collecting about 1,200 tons of glass a year at our drop-off sites, but we've been able to move the finished product more. And so what that means is we've been able to expand the collection of this material. And so one thing that Solid Waste Services has been doing is in 2019, we actually restarted a commercial glass collection program So if you have a business within our service area, you are eligible for commercial glass recycling. And we pick it up once a week. We have, over a dozen businesses participating right now, including 49th State Brewing, Snow City Cafe, Crush, Darwin's Theory, all of those folks and more who are taking their glass and they are recycling it. And so that's really exciting. We continue to expand this program and to offer it to anybody in our service area that has a business that wants commercial glass. We did this because we do know that bars and restaurants in particular are large consumers of glass and they have a lot of glass waste. And so we wanted to target kind of those high level users, right? But we do know that glass is one of the most requested items from members of our community. So last year, we actually launched some more community glass recycling options. So at 3 high schools, we have these little, we call them glass recycling islands. We have one at East High, West High, and Diamond High School. And it's where you can drop off your glass bottles. Just trying to make it a little bit more convenient for people because we do know that the recycle center can get pretty busy or it can be kind of out of the way for a lot of folks. So we are working to try to expand glass collection because again, it is one of the few items that we are able to recycle here locally. And so we want to continue to support that as much as possible. Another item that we've been working to do a lot more collection on is organics. And so when I talk about organics, I mean food scraps and yard trimming. So sort of organic materials that that can break down aerobically into compost, right? So one of the reasons we're really targeting this waste stream is that there is huge potential for us to capture a lot of material. Food scraps and yard trimmings make up about 25% of all municipal solid waste. And so we've worked with folks to calculate how much we could collect, and it's about 90,000 tons of material we could collect each year if we were able to get our collection systems up to a really robust level. That's like 25% of our overall solid waste. So when I go back, talking about how can we extend the life of the landfill, that would be a huge benefit, right? In order to keep the landfill open for as long as possible. Another thing about this material, so what we're doing with it is we're composting it, right? And so we're turning it into compost, which can then be, distributed in our community for gardeners and any sort of landscaping and that sort of thing. And so it's creating economic opportunities by trying to develop that, but also it's keeping it out of the landfill because when it goes into the landfill, when it breaks down, it produces methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas. And we work really hard at the landfill to collect all of that methane, and some of it goes to a gas to energy project that we have. We end up flaring about 1/3 of it. So we don't want to produce more methane, right? Because it's bad for the environment to do that. And it takes a lot of work on behalf of solid waste to manage that. So again, a lot of environmental reasons why we're trying to collect it, as well as economic ones. So the way we've been improving the collection for the yard waste and the food scraps has been through primarily 2 programs that we have. So we have a curbside organic program. So if you're a solid waste services customer in Anchorage, or you live in one of those neighborhoods or have been in those neighborhoods, you may have seen these pink garbage cans. Those are the curbside organics program, and the food scraps and yard trimmings are going into those cans, and we pick it up once a week from May through October. And so that's just one of the methods that we've built up over the years to try to collect more of this material. Right now we have about 1,300 participants, and over the last few years we've collected about 300 tons a year. So it's still like a drop in the bucket in terms of like the overall tonnages that we collect at the landfill, but we're working towards, building that program up, getting more participants in it. It's currently open to everyone that lives in our service area that has roll cart trash and recycling services. And Alaska Waste has also started their own program, but it's limited to folks who live in the Bayshore Clat neighborhoods. So yeah, but we definitely encourage you to participate in that program if you've not, because It can really reduce your overall waste that's going into your regular trash can. And it can, again, it provides those environmental benefits, and it could potentially save you money depending on what your trash service looks like. So we have that, as well as our community compost program, which is a free program where we have drop-off sites at the Anchorage Regional Landfill and the Central Transfer Station, where folks can bring their food scraps. We only accept food scraps there. And you can drop those off. And then one of the cool things about these programs is that we also provide free finished compost. So if you participate in either of those programs, we do these compost drop-offs once a month, where you can come and get the finished compost. So just a way of trying to incentivize people and reminding them of where this material is going, right? You're not just throwing it into a landfill where it disappears forever. You're actually creating new materials that can be put to beneficial use. So we're really excited about these programs. They're really beneficial for the community.
All right, and Susanna, I think that we might have skipped a slide in there. I think we have the what can you recycle slide with the graphic that I think we missed it. Do you think we can go back?
How about we go back at the end?
At the end, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, I'll just talk a little bit about some other recycling that you might not be aware of that Alaska Waste does. And these are things I wasn't aware of till I started working there. So one of the major ways that we do composting is through commercial composting. So Cars and Walmart and Charlie's Produce, especially, and a couple of the other large grocery stores. When you go into the grocery store and you see the little fruit cups that are already pre-made that they make in-house, all of those food scraps, those fruit trimmings, I guess, they all get composted. They go into a different bin that the folks put it in, and we use, of course, different cart, and we take it out to a farm in Palmer, and they actually feed those fruit scraps to their pigs out there. So we calculated about how much we were saving a few years back, and it was about 50,000 pounds a week that we were keeping out of the landfill. And one of the other reasons this is great for the stores is because fruit rinds, they're all very acidic, and they would not only mess up the compactors by degrading them, but they would freeze, all the juice would freeze, and then they'd have this big frozen, messy compactor. And so by not doing that, by instead having the food scraps be taken to a local farm, it's a win-win for everybody. And that's a program that I really love that program. And we also, as Susanna mentioned, we have residential composting. It's a very small area right now. And if anybody's interested, I can get you the information. I'll give you my email at the end of this. It's in, the Bayshore Clat area, and happy to share more about that. It's seasonal. It's only from May through October. But even with our small, very, very small customer base, I think we had 100 households the first year. I want to say 60,000 pounds, 70, 80, 90,000. It was a huge number of stuff that just didn't go into the landfill. So we're hoping to expand, slowly and steadily expand our composting as the municipality does as well. Because, the thing about waste and recycling is that we all have the same goals. We all want the landfill to be open for as long as possible, so we don't have to think about shipping our waste out to the valley where it's going to be 4 times as expensive for us, and thus 4 times as expensive for taxpayers and for customers. So we all want the same things, and that's why, I would encourage you to look into whatever programs are in your neighborhood. But the another one we do that's big is construction materials and scrap metals. We help building projects become LEED certified, which is the energy efficiency design. And basically you can have your construction materials go to it's called a monofill, where it doesn't have the same considerations for methane and things like that. It's just construction materials. And then scrap metals actually go to a scrap metal dealer who handles it, the AK Scrap Metal. So those all get recycled or reused as well, except monofill, that just goes separate place. And we also have, special projects that we've been doing. Kaladi Coffee Grounds. Kaladi approached us a few years back and asked about composting all of their coffee grounds and sending it out to Gateway to the Arctic Camp. It's in Talkeetna. It's for special needs kids, and it's like a huge farm out there. And so for one full summer, we weren't able to do it last summer and this summer because of the pandemic, but when we did it, we had 12,000 pounds of coffee grounds that we kept out of the landfill just from the Kaladi stores. And they went out to this farm, and the farm was so happy to get them. And we're always looking for ways that we can partner with businesses and entities to do these kind of projects. And we have the resources, and we have the desire to do it. So we love building these kinds of partnerships, and yeah, it's been really rewarding for me personally too. But I think that's all I've seen. What's next? Okay, freebies. Cool. So we're going to go back to this middle graphic here. This is the what you can and can't recycle. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But if you want any of these freebies, on the left, that's a recycling book, Recycle Right Anchorage, and the municipality, Alaska Waste, and the school district all work together to create this recycling book. It was drawn by an Anchorage artist, Sarah Glasser. Really neat, gorgeous drawings, really handy. It'll tell you or your nieces or nephews or grandkids or kids how what to recycle and whatnot. And then in the middle, this is a magnet and a sticker that you can get from us, and the municipality has, I believe you have these as well. It's the same graphic. So I can get these to you if you like, or we have all these, that dog sticker. We've got a couple different styles of these stickers. It's the same artist, Sarah Glasser. And if you email us at recyclehelp@akwaste.com, we can get any of these materials to you. Girl Scout groups and things like that. I'll give a bunch of stuff to. And so if you have events or groups that you want to get a bunch of recycled materials to, I can help with that. So recyclehelp@akwaste.com. You can also send us questions about what's recyclable there. And if we don't know the answer, we will ask the recycling center, which I do a lot. So please feel free to email, that's me, email me at the Recycle Help, and I can help you out. I think that's it.
All right, thank you both. That's really outstanding information. I know we have some questions in chat, so all right.
And we're actually going to go back because we missed one slide, and it's a very important slide. It's probably going to answer some questions. So did you want me to talk about this, Susanna, or
I can run through it really fast. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to just recycling in general, you guys did really well on your quiz. So I think most people here probably have a pretty good idea, but the things we can accept are pretty limited. So the things I'm going to run through really quick are the things that can be dropped off in both your curbside bin or at a drop-off site. Here, there's a couple. The major drop-off sites are at the Anchorage Recycling Center and then at the Anchorage Regional Landfill. There are also some smaller drop-off sites all throughout the municipality, at some grocery stores, at some high schools and stuff like that. We actually have a map on our website where you can see where all those different locations are and what materials they accept. But the big things to remember, so we accept mixed paper at both drop-offs and curbside. So this includes everything from junk mail to office paper to cereal boxes or any of those sort of paperboard boxes that, all kinds of material comes in, as well as magazines and that sort of stuff. Even the glossy magazines, that sort of thing. Newspaper, oftentimes at drop-off sites, you will see newspaper segregated out, but it can also just go into your curbside bin. We also accept number 1 plastic bottles. Again, the thing to remember with plastics, it needs to be either a number 1 or a number 2 with a screw top or a handle if it's a number 2 plastic jug. So for example, like a shampoo bottle that's, a number 1 plastic bottle, it would be okay as long as there's a screw top. If you don't have that screw top, don't recycle it. Cardboard is accepted in both your curbside container or a drop-off. And like we mentioned earlier, pizza boxes are also included in that, even if there's a little bit of grease, as well as aluminum and steel cans. Those are also items that are accepted. Then the only other things that we accept, and it's going to be drop off only, and so that would be glass, which again, there are the glass sites that I mentioned earlier. Again, don't put that into your curbside bin. And then clean aluminum foil is actually accepted at the Anchorage Recycle Center. And so, yeah, so those are the big things that can be recycled. Some of the things that we see a lot that cannot be recycled are any of those 3 through 7 plastics. So we're talking about yogurt containers, or any sort of plastic film, or I mean, I've seen people try to recycle plastic kayaks and, children's car seats, like they try to put those in the bins. Those can't be recycled. Sometimes there's specialized recycling for it, for like car seats, for example. Sometimes Target and those folks will take things like that. But generally, those are not accepted for recycling here in Anchorage at any of the drop-off sites, or or in your curbside bin. Cartons are not accepted. So any sort of milk carton or juice carton, things like that. Again, one thing to think about, if your paper has a waxy coating on it, it can't be recycled. So again, that applies to like food containers as well. So just, or even like a cardboard fish box, for example, we see those sometimes. There's a waxy coating on it. So they're not able to actually recycle those because that wax prevents the fibers in the paper from breaking down, so they can make it into new paper or new cardboard. So, and yeah, those are the big. Oh, also no like napkins or tissues or anything like that. The fibers in those napkins and tissues are too fine to be recycled into anything else. Your tissues are actually in toilet paper and stuff. They're typically made up of recycled materials already. They're typically made up of like newspaper and stuff like that. So, yeah. So those are the big things to remember when it comes to recycling here in Anchorage.
Well, thanks so much, Susanna. Looks like we got some questions in chat. I'd like to jump over to those as we near the top of the hour here. And looks like the first one, I think you may have addressed this. Basically, can you, I think does that mean we should not recycle shredded paper?
So shredded paper can be recycled. What I would encourage you to do, a way to make it easier for the machines to sort it out and actually to keep your bin cleaner and nicer, is put it in a paper bag. And then it can get sorted out much easier and it doesn't make as much of a mess. Okay.
And how about for glass? Should we remove the lids when we recycle the glass?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely remove the lids, because that we end up having, when it gets crushed up, we have to, end up sorting that out. So it makes it more difficult to do that. But that said, your glass, the labels and stuff are fine to keep on the glass bottles. We're able to mix that in fairly easily.
And what about the lids on plastic bottles? I have one right here in my hand. There's a lid on it. Does that lid need to be removed?
No, actually, yeah. So I know it can get confusing, and there used to be a lot of education around lids. It was even here in Anchorage, we told everybody to take the lid off. But the thing is, the way that the plastics are processed has changed. And so now the recyclers are able to deal with those lids and just incorporate it into the recycle process. So it doesn't hurt the process to leave them on. They actually get recycled.
Great. And the next question, how do I find out if I can get a pink can pickup for my house?
Yeah, so when it comes to a pink can, if you are a solid waste services customer with Roll Cart Trash and Recycling Services, so that means you have a brown garbage can and a blue recycle can, you would have access to the curbside organics, the pink cans. And to get it, you can just call our customer service, or you can get in touch with me afterwards and I can get you more information, and we can get you set up with it. If you live in the area that Laurel mentioned, the Bayshore Clat area, they provide the service in that neighborhood, and she could talk more about that.
Yeah, in that case, just get in touch with me if you are in that Bayshore Clat area, and I can send you the full map and everything.
Great. And then a couple of questions here on specific items. Can you recycle water bottles? I think we talked about that. What about other types of water bottles, maybe like the Nalgene bottles that I think maybe you have one in your hand there, Susanna? Something like, thank you, something like that. Is that recyclable?
So this is not, yeah, this is, it's a number 7 plastic actually. And so one kind of interesting thing, so the plastics, again, I talked earlier about how that number relates to the type of resin that's used. There's 3 through 7. 7 is the catch-all plastic, right? So it's like random, like there's a million things that are number 7 plastic, right? And yeah, so this is a number 7. And so because of that, it's not recyclable. Again, the only plastics that we can recycle here in Anchorage are the number 1 plastic bottles and the number 2 plastic jugs.
And this is, I'm kind of holding one up. This is, I'm assuming, is this the type of bottle you would accept?
Yep.
Yeah,
that's the number 1. Yep.
All right. And what about phone books?
You want to answer that one?
Sure. Yeah. Phone books are accepted. Yeah, they are.
Great. All right. Next question. Will SWS expand their recycling program to include more of the clamshells, styrofoam, and paper plates, dishes over once the new facility is built in Anchorage?
Yeah, so we are always trying to expand what we can and can't accept when it comes to recycling. You know, the challenge there is that, especially when it comes to those commodities that we talk, again, the paper, the plastic, the aluminum, the tin, that sort of thing, it really is based on worldwide markets, right? And so if it's not economical for us to collect it, and when I say economical, I mean, no one is getting rich off of recycling here in Anchorage, but just the costs need to be covered, right? And so, you know, if it doesn't pencil out, we can't accept it. And so, you know, with the clamshells, for example, we used to be able to accept it because, and I don't want to get too in the weeds here because it can get a little complicated, but a lot of the plastics in the United States used to go to China, right? And so because of that, there was a big kind of international market for plastics recycling. But what we found out is that, you know, China was not processing these in a very environmentally friendly way, right? And so they stopped accepting basically all recycling, but especially plastics. And so that meant that there was really no places in the United States that were accepting these clamshells anymore, in particular the clamshells, because that was one thing that we were accepting because we were able to find markets for it. But when that went away, then the places we can ship those clamshells to get recycled essentially disappeared overnight. And so it's not economical anymore, and there isn't even an end market for it. So at this time, you know, there's no place to send those. That said, I mean, when China stopped accepting a lot of our recycling in the United States, recyclers and folks who work in the solid waste industry realized that, like, we have to do more to meet the needs of our residents, right? You know, and the needs of the packaging companies and that sort of thing. And so they are working to develop new technologies to recycle these items. And new recycling facilities are coming online every day. And, you know, Laurel and I and the folks at Westrock, we watch that all very closely and we look for opportunities. But it does take time, and we're not seeing anything at the moment that pencils out for us. But if that changes, we would start accepting clamshells. We would start, you know, accepting all of the other things that we can't recycle at this time. But for a lot of it, there's no place to even accept it. So yeah, it's really challenging. And, you know, I mean, and we, you know, Laurel and I work in recycling, we want to recycle everything, right? But we understand that there are some really, really big challenges here, especially since we do have to ship it all out. It makes it just a little bit harder, right? To get stuff there. And then, you know, for some of the, you know, because recycling all over the country is different depending on where you are, because maybe somewhere else has better access to a plastics recycling facility or whatever, so they can take the clamshells or the number 5s or something like that. But those places get inundated with the plastics in those places because there isn't a lot of infrastructure built up around it. So that's changing, especially with plastics, as we recognize that plastics are so ubiquitous within our society, and recognizing that we need to do more to manage those properly. So that was a long-winded way of saying that. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I really appreciate that. And then the next question is, can Tetrapax be recycled? And I don't even know what a Tetra Pak is, so
not
maybe
sure.
explain that.
Yeah, so a Tetra Pak, those are like the things, like if you've bought the soup containers or like broth and stuff, it comes in this package that's it's a mix of plastic and metal and paper, right? They're kind of these like sturdier little boxes. I see them with soup a lot. That's like a really common one. Tetra Paks can't be recycled. Again, when we talked about the waxy paper and all of that, it's the same kind of thing. The paper and the metal and the plastic are all kind of meshed together, and you can't separate it out. And so we can't recycle those at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, and how about wire clothes hangers?
You could,
Really?
yeah, you could take
Very
it to you could take it to the scrap metal. That would be like tin or whatever. So they would accept it at scrap metal yards. In Alaska, scrap and recycling is the biggest one here in Anchorage. They don't accept that at the Anchorage Recycling Center, though.
Okay, good to know. Well, that got us through all the chat questions. Thanks for everyone. Those were great questions. Thanks for everyone putting those in there. And I do want to be aware of the time here, and we are right up at the top of the hour. But Susanna and Laurel, really outstanding information. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did that participated, and we are recording this, so it will be available if anyone missed it or wants to revisit it. We will have it available through AARP Alaska. And with that, I want to thank both Susanna Caldwell and Laurel Andrews for being our guests today with AARP. We really appreciate your time and all of the information you shared. And if you have any questions about AARP, you're always welcome to reach out to us. Our website is aarp.org/AK. So with that, I wish everyone a great day and enjoy. I'm sure we're all going to go home and look at those products a little better today. Look at those numbers and hopefully get our recycling a little cleaner for the whole process. So Susanna and Laurel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish everyone a great day. All right, take care.
Bye.
Thanks all.